Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It is December 3rd, 2019 at 6:30. I call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. The prayer Thursday night will be with Aldermen Church. I will have the Pledge of Allegiance. You should all have a copy of the November 7th, 2019 public hearing and regular meeting. We'll have department reports. Moving on to consent agenda. A, approve city bids and purchases as recommended. First is bid pest control services. Ms. Felicia.
Yes. I know that I'm not requesting the lowest bidder here, but I have a lot of reasons why. If you'd like me to start naming them, I can. Customer service is the biggest. Customer service is the biggest problem we had with them. We had Kirkland's before, and they lost our contract, and a lot of it was customer service and actually getting to us in a good manner. And then they weren't spraying inside, they were spraying outside. And it was just numerous things that we had going on that we just didn't feel like it was good to continue working with them. But if y'all decide to go with them, I will honor your decision.
Okay, any questions? Moving on to number 2, bid for the road salt.
Yeah, that one I've been going back and forth with all day. That would be a 3-year contract, a guaranteed 3-year contract. I did get that finally. It's not in the memo, but because I was going back and forth with the gentleman.
Any questions?
And then, of course, our office supplies, just kind of a cleanup of its state contract. Same with tires. The state contract pricing's a lot better, and if anybody wants to see the tires pricing, I printed it all off so that we'd have it for Thomas. This is something Thomas asked me to take care of. Anything else?
Any questions on the office supplies or the tires?
Okay, y'all are quiet.
Thank you,
tonight.
Felicia. B, approve a facility encroachment agreement with CSX Transportation Incorporated for the Upper Cheney Woods Interceptor Sewer Line Project.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Board. You have in front of you a proposed agreement from CSX Transportation for a crossing of their 2 railroad tracks between Murfreesboro Road and the co-op for the Upper Cheney Woods Interceptor Sewer. Their proposed agreement is for $14,950 plus a certificate of insurance plus an agreement to be executed between the city and CSX Transportation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Any questions? Moving on to C, approve contract with Pyro Shows Incorporated for the July 4th, 2020 Independence Day Fireworks Show. This is our annual contract for the fireworks show. Any questions about it? Moving on to D, approve affinity program agreement with Planet Fitness for benefits eligible employee memberships for the City of Laverne Wellness Plan. This is basically a new benefit to the city employees that would give them all the classic membership to Planet Fitness here in Laverne. So they would have access to that and be able to work out and hopefully, be able to maintain or improve their health and cardiovascular and everything with that.
Do we have an annual cost for that?
An annual cost? I don't know. I know it's $10, I believe, per person, and we've got some requirements in there so that individual number of employees will fluctuate based on how many sign up, because I think the fire department, and I may be mistaken if the police department as well, both already are provided free membership. That's outside of this, but it's based on the number of employees, and there's criteria of having to go a certain amount of times per month.
Is this something that has to be outside of work hours?
Yes. This would be something that they do on their own time.
Which could be lunchtime or after work or before work.
And if I may say, it's only for the employee. It is not for their dependents or spouses. It's only the employee, full-time.
And what if the employees currently have a membership there? Do they supplement that?
We will work with them to figure out who currently has a plan and work that out.
Will this just be for this Planet Fitness or any of it?
This would be for this one. The classic membership is just for ours. So you'd have to go up to the Black Card membership to be able to use any.
Gotcha.
But we're doing simply the classic, which is all the cardiovascular equipment, the weights, 30-minute training areas, not the tanning booths, massage chairs, not all of that.
The employees can choose to get the black card, and the city would still pay the $10, but the employee would have to pay the other $11.99.
So I guess with this situation, Chief, let's don't put a weight room in the new fire hall.
So currently, we do not provide while they're on duty.
Okay.
I've spoke to each individual some time ago, each councilman or alderman, concerning this matter with the fire department. It was during that time, I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months ago that I spoke to each one of you about. And so currently, we're not utilizing that facility while on duty.
No, what my statement was, we don't want to see a purchase of a bunch of weight equipment for the new fire hall, exercise equipment. You know, if we're,
That doesn't have anything to do with this. They can't go to that on duty.
right. So
That was the wishes from each.
I seen in the plans an exercise room or something on there, so.
Yes.
That exercise room would be used by the fire department when they're on duty versus this is only off duty.
Okay.
Currently, we have some weight, very little bit of exercise equipment in each station today. That was purchased some time ago. And that's what they utilize while on duty. Now, with some of these guys, what they have done is they come in before. I know of one individual that comes in at 4 o'clock in the morning, works out here at our local gym, and then goes into work. Later on that afternoon, they get into the fire station
Gotcha.
workout.
Any other questions?
How many times per month are the employees required to work out?
Believe currently it is it 2 or 3, Bruce?
I believe we're talking about eight times a month that they would
I'm
be
thinking
required,
week.
to go per month, in order to keep this benefit.
Gotcha.
If they fall below that, I think they'll get a warning the first time, and then if they fall below it again, they will lose it. And I think they have to sit out for either 60 or 90 days until they can get it again.
Was that Planet Fitness, something they track on their side, or is that something that the city will?
They will track it and send us monthly reports on how it's utilized.
Anytime you go to Planet Fitness, they give you a card that you have to scan every time that you come in. That's how they verify that you're an active member.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is this something that other cities have done?
This other companies, other cities have done. It's a benefit to your employees, and in the long term, you can see potentially, I know with 2 different companies I've worked with, AmMed and Fresenius, we actually saw a rate reduction in our insurance premiums because we're investing in our employees' health.
I agree.
Moving on to E, approved 2020 league facility user agreement with the Tennessee Strikers Softball League. This is the basically annual agreement with the Strikers. David, can you come up here and talk as far as if anything has changed between this year and last year's contract? I know there were some discussions on some items.
Yes, sir, thank you. I think the only thing that has really changed is the field rental fee. We're trying to make that consistent, so that's gone to $150 per field, per complex. And basically, I believe that's the only thing that's changed, isn't it, Bruce?
I think that's the main thing, yeah.
I have a question too. Have they met their contractual obligations from last year?
I think they have met them today. There may be some paperwork that they still need to get to us, but as far as their payment, that came through today.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you,
Thank you.
David. F, proposal from Burris, Thompson, and Associates to conduct an employee compensation study. This is our regular 3-year compensation study. It's a market study. It is in the budget. The money will be coming from the professional services, from HR, and going ahead and authorizing it will basically get us that information before we get to the 2020 budget.
And is this the same company that we used for last market study?
Yes. It will be a consistent group of information.
Have all the job descriptions been updated? I know there's been some changes to the structure a little bit.
Well, the job descriptions were updated in the last study, so unless it's a job that has been posted due to vacancy, there really has not been any change in any of the actual descriptions. But if there were changes, this company did the classifying, or did the classification for those changes. So again, this is something that is, that will be consistent with the last study, but we won't go into as great of depth as far as analyzing, because the descriptions are already in place.
Okay.
It's more market-based.
Okay.
Will this study show the consolidation of departments? Like a department head holding 2 positions?
It will be based on the actual job. The job that is defined in whether it's a manager, director, line-level employee. It's based on jobs.
So like the city manager or administrator position and the city recorder position, will it be one position or will it be broken down as 2 as it was in the budget?
It's as it is in the last study, so I can't say verbatim, but it would have been administrator, city recorder.
So it is combined?
So it should be combined. It's however the position is listed now, currently. And again, the positions have not changed since the last study,
Okay.
so
If you'll just verify that for me.
we'll do.
Any other questions? Moving on to G, approve an interlocal agreement with the town of Smyrna for the placement of grid router devices on various traffic poles and real property located in and owned by the city of Laverne. This one, there's been some discussion about, but last I heard on this is where, looks like for the town of Smyrna with their gas service, they're looking at doing something similar to our AMRs that we do with the water, so that it makes it easier for them to be able to read those. Any questions about this? Moving on to H, approve the 2020 meeting schedule. This takes us all through next year. So be sure.
I have a question. Speaking to several different of the committee members for the LEPC, we'd like to move that to a different time of the day. Because most of these employees are government officials or government employees, and it's putting them in, we have an overtime issue. So is this something that we can move to lunchtime, Bruce?
Yeah, I don't see any issue with that. It's just picking the time. And you're the chairman of that, so really that's your decision.
So would we, before we adopt this, is that something that you can just change it? Okay.
Just let me know.
Maybe I'll just talk to our department heads, and see what works out best for them. The outside group is, we have people from the county and the state and different areas, so.
Yeah, just let me know the time we can make that change.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Moving on to new business. First reading ordinance 2019-41, an ordinance to amend Title 20, Chapter 4 of the Vergne Municipal Code regarding public records requests. And I believe this just updates as far as who those requests go through, the wording in that code, and has, of course, the public record request coordinator has email for them. Just basically cleaning up our municipal code on that. Any questions?
So will this still go through the assistant city recorder?
This would go through the public records request coordinator,
And
as it lists.
I didn't know we had that position. That's
Well,
what
it's whoever is designated for that.
So would that be a person that changes weekly, or would that be, how would that?
Well, the city administrator would designate somebody who would handle that, just similar to how we currently have different, we have people who handle that right now.
So who handles it right now, Bruce?
Well, the current municipal code states the assistant city recorder, and we're changing that to city administrator or his designee.
Why are we making the change?
Because currently, we don't have a assistant city recorder in the office. So we're not really following our policy at this point.
Are we going to fill that position?
We're still making that determination what we're going to do with
Technically, the position would be filled by anyone that the city administrator designates if this ordinance passes.
Yes.
So,
But it doesn't specify. I mean, this really opens it up to where the city administrator can,
Well,
it could change weekly.
it could, but that's
So we need to
not
put some
realistic.
teeth in it, on who he appoints. I mean,
So,
what benefit?
well, so the citizens know when they come to City Hall during operation hours and the city administrator isn't here, they know where to go to do a public information request.
and if there's turnover in that position, as far as whoever's the person that's designated?
Is there turnover in that position?
No, I'm asking, you've thrown out a hypothetical
No, I'm
that.
not, it's not hypothetical. I mean, that's the facts. Citizens.
No, the hypothetical was that someone comes in to put in an information request. That's the hypothetical, and that the city administrator is not here. So if you put a specific person that's designated, then anytime that there's turnover, then you're gonna have to come back and amend the ordinance every time.
So how long have we been operating outside of our ordinance, Bruce?
Well, I mean, the previous assistant recorder has been on leave, but I mean, we've been filling in as best we can since then.
And we've not had any drops with public information requests.
So why make the change?
Because the municipal code has assistant city recorder. We currently don't have that position, so this amends it to say city administrator or his designee.
Are we getting rid of that position in the pay study?
As far as my belief, which we haven't put anything out yet, I would like to see that position as an admin assistant. This way, they can assist our administrators in any way that they need.
And the administration of the employees does come from the city administrator. He currently has that power, and that's the power that he wields and has always wielded. So it's really not, it's only just cleaning up the language.
That's my concern with having the city administrator and the city recorder being the same person. This is something I brought to Evan's attention, and still haven't got answers on that.
Is there any specific personal reason why you would want to know?
Personal reason?
Yeah.
No, just MTS said it's not something that they recommend, and we're sent to those classes to learn from MTS, and when MTS says it's something that they don't recommend, I question legal why that is, and we're still in limbo.
But it's a recommendation.
A recommendation by who?
You just said it was a recommendation by MTS.
That they don't recommend it.
Right. It's a recommendation. Do or don't, it's a recommendation.
At the end of the day, this board decides that position not any one person. So it's on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for that, for that position.
And Evan, are we compliant with our charter?
Yes.
Any other questions about ordinance 2019-41? Moving on to first reading ordinance 2019-42, an ordinance to amend Title 18, Chapter 3 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the sewer use ordinance. This is just cleaning up a little bit. The city of Nashville has made some changes to how they do their sewer reporting with the tables. And so this is just us cleaning ours up so that we're in compliance with that. Any questions? Moving on to number 6, ordinance 2019-43, an ordinance to amend Title 8, Chapter 3 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding beer. And this is essentially where, again, the state has made some changes. So we are changing the wording in ours to get compliant with it, as well as referring to the state's terminology so that if the state makes changes in the future, we're not having to constantly make these revisions.
I have a question, though. It says that if the alcoholic beverage has a higher alcohol content than beer, but here's the challenge with that. Beer comes in a variety of different octanes, so to speak. So which beer? German beer, Miller Lite beer? I mean, it matters. It really matters. I know it's funny, but it's serious. It really does matter.
Yeah. Bruce, can you go through as far as where the state
And I'm
threw
not
out?
a beer connoisseur, so, it's hard for me to answer this question, but that's
This
why
is
we're.
something that we can really help him with.
Right.
That's why we're referring to the state definition, which I believe they go up to 8% alcohol.
Okay.
So
So there
basically,
is a
anything that
definitive
meets
number.
Their definition of beer would fall under this.
8% or less. So we're not talking about microbrews. Those would be a higher alcoholic content than that. It's good to know the percentage, though. It's important.
The state has it at 8% right now, or less.
And we remove our percentages so that if the state comes back and changes that percentage, we're just going to automatically be in compliance with it going forward.
And our municipal code currently says 5%. So that's why there's a conflict.
Okay.
That's a lie.
Who tests it? Who tests this?
We're defer that one to Randolph.
Randolph? Are you the are you the beer tester? And no. I volunteer.
I know the difference between a Bud Ice and a Budweiser. Stick with
It's about 1%, isn't it?
Stay away from the Bud Ice.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Randolph.
Very welcome.
How's the heart?
Moving on to first reading ordinance 2019-44, an ordinance to amend Article 4, Section 4.070 of the Laverne zoning ordinance as it pertains to signs. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on November 26, 2019. In this very long section, 14 pages worth, most of it was already there. What we did was we removed auto exemption for banners, and then we also removed election signs from city property. One other item which we can probably have some discussion on whenever we get to the meeting, but or tonight as well, but is as far as the timing, which has come up in the past. Let me get over here to it in signs, but it says currently that it's got 2 months prior to the corresponding election, and there's been some discussion in the past if it was 2 months from the early voting date, 2 months from the election date. So that's one thing that probably is one of the most vaguest parts. But it's basically addressing both of those issues, political signs, and then as well as banners and getting rid of that auto exemption.
Certainly, we've had problems with this in the past because not all the candidates tried to comply with the ordinance as it was written before. Is this removing all of the requirements for city signs? So if I chose to, I could have 50 political signs on City Hall property? or 100 or,
No, this gets all political signs off city property.
no, none at all?
None at all.
And how are we going to enforce this? Because the challenge is Randolph and the people that work for codes are kind of caught in the middle when board members or prospective board members are running for an election and refuse to follow the codes. Then it puts them in an awkward position of having to try to discipline or remove the signs that are non-compliant and then potentially upset a current or future board member. So how will it be enforced?
So it can only, since it's part of our codes, it's gonna have to fall still under codes. Randolph would, he and his department would do as they've done for years, which is pick up any signs. And sometimes they would put them in the dumpster, sometimes they would call. This basically cleans this up though, because I know last year's election, City Hall looked a wreck. I think everyone will agree to that. City Hall looked a wreck. And that's not a professional look that we want our residents, our business partners to see. So for me, this cleans it up. I know we had some language issues that we needed to fix with the Supreme Court rulings where basically our prior wording wasn't in compliance with it, which is what led to that. So we've spent, I would say, Bo, would you say probably 6 months, 4 to 6 months working on this in Planning Commission, going through multiple revisions, trying to get the wording just right on this. And then also trying to bring in a couple other things like the banners. But yes, to a degree, this puts codes in the crosshairs. But this makes it clear, regardless of what city building it is, there's no election signs. And it opens it up so that, hey, if it's on private property, they can have it on private property, but it's not going to be on city property.
Okay.
Or in the right of way.
Yes.
Just want to throw that in there.
So your plan is just to remove them if they appear?
You know, when you talk about being in the crosshairs, I've been doing this for 25 years, and if that's been in the crosshair for 25 years, I'm used to that. Well, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
And so one thing that if this does pass, we will get it to the Rutherford County Election Commission. And that way they will have it, and it'll, of course, be online for any candidates to look up.
Right.
Mayor?
Have we solidified, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, go ahead.
Have we solidified if voting putting the signs up 2 months prior is in alignment with Election Day or early voting begin?
Well, that's not in here, and one thing that I will be motioning for whenever we do this is to clarify that, to make it specific to Election Day.
Evan,
Yes.
you have reviewed this and accepted as
Yes,
written?
we, like the mayor said, it's been about a 6-month process, for sure, so, it's as good as it can get. I think,
Okay.
at this point.
Just checking, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I did just notice a typo in section 14B, which is on page 9 of the ordinance. The reference there refers to 15A, and that should be 14A, so I will make that change.
Thank you.
Good eye.
Any other questions? Moving on to number 8, Resolution 2019-27. This is a resolution to rescind Resolution 2013-12, entitled "A Resolution to Remove the City of Laverne from the Application of Mandatory Allowance of the Manufacturer of Alcoholic Beverages." This resolution came about, the 2013 version of it was whenever the state had passed that distilleries can be placed throughout the whole state. Everyone was opted in, and each municipality had 45 days to opt out. And so with that short of a time frame, the board at that time decided to opt out so that future planning could occur to control how these groups come in. Fast forward now, 6 years later, we have a mechanism that already controls how new businesses come in, and that's, of course, Planning Commission. So we already have that. We have a distillery that's interested in locating and opening here in Laverne. But with this resolution on file, the 2013-12, that's not possible. So we've got it, I've got it on here to rescind that if this board decides that. Any questions? Moving on to number 9, Resolution 2019-28, a resolution to accept the Ridge Section 1. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on November 26, 2019. And this is just as it sounds, it's a subdivision acceptance. It's the Ridge Phase 1. They have gotten their top coat. They've gotten the manholes lowered down, thankfully, and lights are up. All the punch list items have been taken care of.
And are the citizens happy?
Well, there's one amenity that they were promised by or spoken to about by the developer, but that's something that we can't enforce.
Is it in their original contracts?
As far as, not that I know of, it's not on the planning for the plat.
What is the amenity?
It was a swimming pool.
And that wasn't on the original plat that went in front of planning?
So it was verbally promised but not written?
Could be added at a later time, could be in a different phase, we don't know, but that's the only complaint. Having spoken to a couple of the residents out there, that's the only complaint that I've heard from them. I mean, the houses are beautiful, it's well lit, they don't have any flooding issues like we've had with some of the other subdivisions nearby, so. Any other questions? Moving on to number 10, appoint or remove board or committee members. We have Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We have one term vacant. Currently, we do not have any applicants for that. Moving on to Historical Preservation Advisory Committee, one term vacant. Again, we do not currently have any applicants for this. The Laverne Housing Authority, we have one term that expired on November 30th, 2019. That's Brenda Bryant, and she has indicated that she does want to stay on that board. Then we have the Library Board. We have one term vacant, Montique Luster. And so that will, we have been advertising that position on Channel 3, and so far have not received any applications. And then we have Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. We have one term vacant. This is Kenneth Perkins, and don't have any applications for that currently. A couple of FYIs is we have Beer Board, where we have one term becoming vacant at the very end of the year, Lou Sullivan. We have for Historical Preservation Advisory Committee, one term coming vacant, which is John Murray. We have the Library Board. We have 3 terms expiring on the 31st. We have Bridget Cole, Gary Frazier, and Linda Steed. So let's see here. Bridget Cole can only be appointed to one more full term, as can Gary Frazier, and then Linda Steed can be appointed to 2 full terms. The Library Board is unique where you have specific term limits. And then we have the Local Emergency Planning Committee. We have 6 terms expiring. Most of them are city employees, with the exception of Mr. Adam Rose, who's with R.C. Sort, but Michael Dietz, Glenn Green, Phyllis Rogers, Garland Russell, Randolph Salyers, their term is all expiring at the end of the year. And then last, we have the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Committee. Chuck Dillon's term will expire at the end of the year. And again, those are primarily FYI, from the Beer Board to the Stormwater Appeals. Those we will check with all of those individuals to see if they want to remain on the board. And if not, get those positions advertised on Channel 3 and on social media.
Hey, Bruce, on this stormwater board, I think the vice chair has changed too.
Okay, I'll double check that.
Joseph Suvak, I believe, is the vice chair now.
Okay, moving on to Mayor Alderman comments. Alderman Church.
Let's see here. One of my concerns on the minutes, I wanted to say something that it just got by me. It shows on the minutes that I wasn't in attendance for the last Mayor Alderman meeting. If you'll add to those minutes, Bruce, that I was at a city-affiliated function.
That's not something you would normally put in the minutes. All it says is you were absent.
It says I was absent, so we don't need to say,
No, we don't give reasons why
okay,
people are
that's
absent.
fine. And then, so I have some concerns that have been brought to my attention in the Blue Valley area, Randolph.
We're working on him. We've been working on him for some time now, and actually, to be to the point and direct to the point, we are working more so with the property owner and not with the tenant. I have advised my staff that any conversations we have regarding that property are with the property owner. And she'll go unmentioned, but we don't hear from her much.
I agree.
So when we do get to the point where the violations have been sent out and there is no response by the property owner, we will cite into court the property owner. We have worked on cleaning up some properties that were adjoining that the tenant owned nearby that we've got resolved, but as you know, the tenant is difficult at best to work with.
Well, I want to clear something up, that business, the scrap part is not grandfathered in. You know, that came into the fact in early, 2000, 2003. And, there's pictures that clearly show.
There are minutes, I think, Bruce, if it was from the planning commission, or not from planning, but from Board of Zoning Appeals, where he was granted that right to use that as a salvage yard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm sure he was granted, I'm sure, but when there's an issue right now with residents and, when contaminants are leaving that property, going on to another person's property.
Let me say this, Alderman Church. I am not a big proponent of the tenant, as we all know. It wasn't long after I arrived in this city that I began butting heads with that individual, and I continue to do so as we speak. So I'm not gonna let that tenant get off on something that they should not be, that shouldn't be allowed. If when the property owner cannot get the tenant to comply, we will deal with the property owner. And that's been my stance from the start of this, is that I don't entertain conversations with the tenant. I'm not going to. It's not the tenant's responsibility. It's the property owner's responsibility. And if the property owner wants to stand up and take care of the tenant, then that's her or the property owner's responsibility. But I'm not a big fan of the tenant, so don't think I'm not.
I'm not saying you are. What I am saying is we have contaminants running off of that property into the other property.
Okay.
And,
I'm not aware of it.
There's some groundwater issues, stormwater problems, and I would think with Adam's help, we can get over there and at least prevent.
Well, I'm not aware of any contaminants issues, but I'll definitely look into that. But right now, that's not been something that's been brought to our attention.
And on the salvage yard, I am aware that the city gave him permission to do the salvage yard, but he does still have to fall under the,
Exactly.
the TDEC regulations.
That's what we're attempting to do right now, is to get the property owner to understand what the TDEC responsibilities are, although they're granted that privilege to do scrapyard there, they're to do it under our ordinances correctly, and they're not being done so. And the time draws near that if they're not corrected, that they will be standing at that podium.
And what time frame is that?
Man, I don't.
I would think we could
Church,
go give them a citation.
I don't have it in front of me, but
No, I'm not
I'm sure
asking
it's coming up. I mean, we have limited court dates the month of December because of the holidays.
Of course.
So I know there's court tomorrow. I'm not sure about the 11th, and I know there's nothing past the 11th. So if it's not tomorrow, which I don't think so, it's the 11th. If not, then it's after the first of the year. And I'll get with my guys in the morning to make me aware of exactly what date that is. If it's not, I don't think it's tomorrow, for if it were, we'd already be getting ready for court.
Right. Have we wrote him a citation?
Oh, yeah, to the property owner,
To the property owner and not the business?
not the tenant.
Okay.
And the tenant wants to come in with, I can do this and I can do that. That's fine. I don't have any discussion with the tenant. It's not the tenant that we're after, it's the property owner. It's their responsibility, bottom line. And they're the one that's gonna be held accountable for the tenant's actions if they cannot get the tenant corrected.
Right.
And I hate to be that way, but
Because we're dealing with both sides of the road now. You know, you have a
Exactly.
subdivision with $250,000
exactly,
homes.
it's been a challenge from day one for us.
Right.
With permits that were supposedly obtained and one thing after another after another. after
They don't
another with this
exist,
individual.
you know.
It's difficult, best to deal with that individual, but deal with the tenant we are through the property owner, via the property owner.
And Chief, what about on the fire side? With the scrapyard, I know there's some precautions that we're allowed to take. Have we implemented any of those on the?
I'm not familiar with this location. There's nothing that's been brought to fire marshal's office, nor to,
Because
fire
at
administrator.
the statue, it's, you have to drain all the fluids out of the vehicle, especially gasoline and things. And if that's being done, great. He should have a waste stream tracking and everything else. If it's not being done, then we have a ticking time bomb sitting over there in the field. And I would think that would be, I mean, you've probably worked several, but I've been around when these salvage yards have caught on fire. And if you go to Express Automotive, for example, it's top notch. You know, I mean, they're one of the biggest in the southeast, and so it can be done properly. And we just need to make sure your guys are actually on that property this month, I believe, putting out a little fire. And it made it easy because everything is in compliance.
Correct.
If it's not in compliance, your guys are gonna be in harm's way, and a lot of fuels, a lot of liquids. But it is a factor that the citizens in Blue Valley, the Pinkston properties, they've invested a lot of time, money, and effort in cleaning up that area. And across the street on the National Highway, we have the subdivision that are the finer homes. I've spoken to some of them, and their concerns are to, let's do something about it, you know?
Well, it's all owned by one individual,
Right.
and
Property is, yeah.
we are working with that individual to get the tenants, to get the property owner's property cleaned up. And we've got a pretty good grasp on him. The tenant's not gonna sneak away. He's not gonna get out from under what we've already put into motion, so. And based on the judge's decisions, there's a little bit of what we do and what the judge does. I mean, we're dependent upon him to recognize the problems that we're dealing with and to address them and adjudicate accordingly. So we can get them in here.
And your guys, I guess, will come in and speak and
Pardon?
witness. Your codes officers will come in and build the case.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, we're building a case against him right now.
Right.
But when we bring it in here, it's up, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it, I don't care who, everybody knows me. When we bring a case to court like that, too often it gets postponed for 30 days. Come back and it's postponed again for another 30 days. And we're just about up to here with everything being postponed or given another 30 days. And it's becoming a real problem. A huge problem. We'll get ruled say, for example, the ruling is in favor of the city, that they're in violation. They march out, go pay the court costs, and that's it. They go right back to doing what they've done. We have to start back from scratch because it's been ruled in this courtroom that they're in violation. And they're to pay costs, penalties, whatever the case may be, whatever the judge will rule. They walk out that door, go down, pay their fines and fees, and go right back out into the community and doing exactly what they've been doing and declare that as a cost of doing business. So maybe with the help of our legal, we can get more done in this courtroom because that's what's happening. We bring them in left and right. My guys are down here
I agree.
just about every court day with something. We've got some issues. One of the other worst violations in this community is out here on Cheney. We all know which one on Cheney I'm talking about. That gets extended, nothing happens. They come into court, judge rules, you're in violation, they go out to pay the fines, go back, and nothing changes. There's another case right now that we're working on that was ruled in this courtroom that you're in violation of. They continue to be in violation to this day. That, they pay their fines, some do, some don't. But those that do look at that fine as being a part of doing business. And that's what they're willing to pay. So there needs to be some conversations held higher than my pay grade to get that fixed.
Maybe Evan can help us,
Yeah, so it comes down really to fundamentally what the jurisdiction of the municipal court is. And the municipal court is a court of limited jurisdiction, meaning that if a judge finds a violation, if that's the finding, then the judge is limited to a $50 fine plus court costs in most circumstances. That's by state law, and so it wouldn't be up to the court to be able to do more or less than that under certain circumstances. The city has the option, and we're doing that in one case Randolph's aware of, and we've done it in another case involving somebody who crossed over a setback line variance. I forgot that one, where the city always has the option to bypass municipal court and to enforce violation of its ordinance in the Chancery Court by seeking a permanent injunction against the violator. The benefit of doing that, to getting a permanent injunction when you have an ongoing violation like that, is that if they continue to violate the injunction, once, for example, the Chancery Court has ordered them to stop and issue the injunction, then the remedy for the city and the penalty to the person violating it is they go to jail and they sit in jail until they decide they want to comply. So if $50 isn't a big deal to somebody and that's the cost of doing business, then they can go down to the $940 and sit there until they decide they want to comply.
and is that something that this board would discuss it with the administrator if that's the next step? Or is that something that Randolph has the power to go straight to the administrator?
Well, in the circumstance that we have pending right now, that was appealed from municipal court to state court and then all the way to the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And the city was affirmed. So, I mean, I think city officials have the authority to say, we can't tolerate it anymore, we need an injunction, go seek one. Certainly, y'all have the ability as a board to instruct me to go sue anybody you want me to go sue if they're in violation.
And that's what we've had to do in the past. I mean, this board, I know that they don't want to sit up there and give us the green light to go commit suing everybody in the city for noncompliance. It's nothing you want to do as an elected official to sue those whom you serve. But there are some in this community that's all we have left to do.
It's really something that if you have a chronic offender, somebody that just will not comply.
What we're seeing in the area, there's people spending a lot of money to beautify their area, their investments.
Well, absolutely.
And then coming down Old Nashville Highway, I mean, the mayor, we're making changes to sign ordinance, and it's all about solicitation of what we have to offer to corporate America, and everything else. So we we just got to make those changes.
Well,
you
and we do
we're building a
daily
beautiful fire department right down the road.
With the benefit of our fire marshal has been involved in a few of these cases that he's been instrumental in his efforts to, I can say her name, figure about 3 or 4 in my head, where he's been extremely instrumental in helping us to achieve some of those compliance issues that we've been trying harder and harder. My hat's off to that young man for the efforts that he's put forth. There's been a few that were stubborn about it, and then there's been a few that were absolutely not gonna do it. But with his efforts and our efforts, we're doing everything we can try to. I want to see before I leave here, Murfreesboro Road be a gleaming spot in Rutherford County, through from one end of the city to the other. And it's hard to do sometimes because of people that have been in these locations along Murfreesboro Road for decades doing these, conducting business that is just unsightly to the community. But if they've been doing it for decades, how do you, until they change ownership and therefore or abandon the use? There's one that I'm working on right now that the use has been abandoned, and now all of a sudden there's a new business popped up, and it's not pretty at all. But it's not going to stay that way. I will do everything I can to get it. It's on the south end of the town, city, on the left going out. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, and it's change of use, and it's not conducive to what we're trying to achieve along Murfreesboro
That
Road.
assists us with our new rules and regulations on that end, the corridor that we're trying to improve.
We work on it every day, Alderman Church,
We're getting it.
a little bit at a time.
Phones are ringing,
I mean, I had a friend once say, "We'll eat that elephant one bite at a time."
So we're on the same page on that area.
Absolutely.
We just need to get that verbiage out to the community that says,
Well,
you're working on it, you got the legal involved, everyone's involved. We just got to keep the pressure on them.
we do. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman Jones.
Well, first of all, if I can piggyback off of the conversation that we just had, the first inclination I got with it is I'd like to see these people that we call directors of these services that we got in the city. I'd like for us to, as a board, defer to them. I don't know that much about codes. You can give me the codes regulations, I can read them, and I can come back and I can discuss them with you intelligently. But just because I get a phone call, I'm not going to sit up here and question one of my directors who's working and doing what he's supposed to do. We can't snap our fingers and make it happen. We are in a position where we're basically the liaison with the public. We can't sit up here and just because one person is pissed off at another person, I'm going to go to this alderman because I know this alderman will listen to me because that person voted for that other. We can't keep doing that. Defer it to him, and we've got a non-biased individual who's going to follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do. I don't think that we need to sit up here and try to expedite something that all of us should know that our legal system is not going to speed up for anybody. It's going to go its course, and we're going to do what we need to do. So sitting up here trying to speed up a situation, if it's a hazard, then if they feel that there's a hazard, the individual can quickly leave Laverne and go to the county, they can go to the state, they can even go to the federal government and make sure that something done if it's a true hazard. But if we're sitting up here speculating because someone says that someone's not doing something because they don't like them, if that worked that way, I could get my ex-wife in a lot of trouble. So we're not going to even go that route. We're going to go by one side saying something about somebody they don't like. So we need to defer to the department heads. Let them do what they do. And when the individual call you, even if your phone's ringing off the hook, let the individual know, because a lot of people, a lot of the citizens they don't know. I didn't know until I got into this seat. The process is not the way I think it should be because I would do things a certain way. You got to let these people who we pay to do it, do it. That little, our majority of the vote that put us up here didn't make us all knowing and all wise. Thank you very much. All of my teams won this weekend, and I'm happy.
Vice Mayor Brown.
I just want to say, again, that Calvin is happy. That's his happy. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who came out. We had a great time at Sonic this past weekend. A lot of presents brought in, both for seniors and for children. A lot of tips raised. We've had some firemen, some policemen, which I think the firemen may have come up a little short. That friendly competition. Chief Clark, maybe next time you need to hop a little bit more.
Ask them about softball.
I'll be sure to ask Chief about that.
What about that pumpkin carving contest, though?
And then I do want to tell Chief Clark, good job as far as today's big fire at Sims Recycling. Y'all did a great job out there. That went very quick, and thank you to our partners in Smyrna that stepped up and covered some of Laverne while we had all hands on deck to put out that fire. I do want to remind everybody about the Christmas parade that's this Saturday, and I want to challenge everybody, both in our community and here for our board, and even for Alderman No, who's not here, to reach out to your circle of friends. And let's bring in some canned goods for our Fraternal Order Police Christmas Fund for seniors and children. They provide not only Christmas presents, but they provide a lot of food, because during this time of year, you'll see where people come out more and they need that help, and we can provide that. So we will have a well-lit, well-available area here at City Hall after the parade to receive any canned goods. So if you're watching this at home, please bring it in. And for the board, please reach out to your circle of friends, see if they will bring in some canned goods, and let's make a difference in people's lives. With that, call this meeting adjourned.